having junior day, okay? And I know you hear about some schools that don't have school today because they're taking it off because it's a federal holiday. And, I respect that. But I love the fact that we're here and we're learning about the contributions he made to the United States and to our history and to equal rights for people, because we're all human beings. We all deserve equal rights, okay? But Ms. Boroff's going to do a great job today in her classes of teaching you guys how Dr. King really lived a life of giving to others and serving others and trying to make the world a better place by showing his actions rather than just talking and not really following through with things, okay? This is an exciting week because some of you that are involved in some things are actually going to get to start doing things. I know there's some basketball games coming up. I know there's some wrestling meets coming up. For those of you that are involved in wrestling, some of you are involved in basketball, which is awesome. I know some of you have been getting extra hours in at your jobs because you have goals of purchasing some things like a car or other things like that you have big goals for that I've heard you talk about, and that's awesome too. So I'm going to go to our coffee bean, and today's coffee bean is going to build off last week's coffee bean, okay? If you remember last week, I talked to you guys about blame, excuses, self-deception, and giving up, okay? And remember, the opposite of blame is ownership, okay? Ownership is owning up to what happened or what you did rather than blaming someone else, okay? Today we'll talk about excuses, and what's better than an excuse? A solution. And I'll give you a perfect example of that. Last week, Ms. Boroff came to us at a meeting about our para schedule, and our para schedule is where the paras are at certain times of the day. And that can be kind of a tough thing to do because we have great paras, but they have different schedules with their college classes. So trying to get them where they need to be and where the best place for them can be a challenge. And there were some hiccups in it, and Ms. Boroff came to us with some ideas and solutions, okay? She didn't make excuses. She found solutions for why we could be better at that, okay? All of your teachers, all of you, your principal are all guilty of making excuses at one time or another, okay? We need to find that solution mindset in our brain so it's just natural to find a solution rather than go back to what we usually do and find an excuse, okay? So we're going to talk about that today. And next week we'll work on self-deception and self-confrontation and giving up versus grit. Solutions, you guys, if you didn't know that, help us escape the excuse trap, okay? The excuse trap is where it's so easy to start making excuses about what's going on or why you're late or why you didn't get something done or why you have stuff on the missing work log instead of finding a solution, okay? Again, like I said, everybody's guilty of making an excuse. It takes a real person, a real winner, a real person that wants success to find a solution, okay? Blame, like I said, is pointing the finger at someone, okay? There's a famous coach one time that used to say after they lost, I don't point the finger, I point the thumb. And what they meant by that was, I got to figure out a way to make us better, okay? Excuses are a shrug. So if blaming somebody is pointing your finger, excuses are kind of like, all right, I don't care, whatever. Things like that are the difference between pointing the finger and using the shrug, okay? So remember, excuses are like a shrug. Blame is pointing the finger, all right? Excuses are like quiet withdrawals from effort, responsibility, and possibility, okay? I've seen excuses involving all these things at school, okay? I'll give you some examples. You take a quiz, you don't do well on it, and I hear this, I'm just too dumb, I can't do that. Well, guess what? I've seen your MAP scores, I've seen your NSCAS scores, I've seen how you've done in things here. You're not dumb, okay? And a lot of times I hear teachers tell you, hey, we can do hard things. Excuses take away from getting hard things accomplished, okay? Maybe you can get that quiz done if you put in a little more effort. Maybe if you take responsibility for doing better notes or doing notes at all, you can be successful. And it's always possible, okay? If you make an excuse, you eliminate that possibility from happening. And, you know, if you give effort, possibility is always on the table, okay? If you don't make enough money at your job and you don't like it, and you look for another job that pays more money per hour, it's possible you get that car sooner that you want to get, okay? My big thing with excuses are they kill our performance, okay? I wore this for a reason today because you all know I'm a Chiefs fan. I've been a Chiefs fan for about 50 years. I inherited it from my grandfather, and we didn't do so hot this year. And instead of making excuses like Patrick Mahomes tore his ACL, that's why we didn't make the playoffs. No, if Patrick had stayed healthy, we weren't going to make the playoffs. We didn't finish games. We had too many penalties. We had too many undisciplined things happen during the year. And Andy Reid, the coach, didn't make excuses. He looked for solutions. He's going to make trades. He's going to find different players to make our offensive line better to protect our quarterback. He's going to make the defensive line better to put pressure on the other team's quarterback to make our team better. He's going to get different coaches to make our players better. Those are all solutions that Coach Reid will do to make my Chiefs better, okay? For those of you that don't like football and you don't care, I understand. That's just where my brain is at today because it's the playoffs. So, okay, remember, excuses are the performance killer. When you start making excuses in class, when you start making excuses about your points, when you make excuses of why you're late today, those are killing your performance. Don't be a performance killer. Okay? Excuses are easy because they give you a soft landing. They shift attention because you fell short. All right? How many times have you failed a quiz and your teacher asked you about your notes and you looked through your notes and you didn't finish your notes? You know, you make an excuse about your notes because you fell short, okay? You got that soft landing because you're making an excuse about your notes, all right? Excuses let you leave early while you still are capable of finishing something, all right? I see this happen a lot with kids when they get mad at school. They make some kind of excuse of why they need to leave school. Okay? And that's not what we do here. Trust me, your teachers, your principal, other people that are adults in this building have days that don't go the best for them and they would love to leave early. Okay? Last Friday, there were some people that left early. They were sick. That's not an excuse. That's a situation. Okay? The solution for them was rather than throw up 10 times at school and get other people sick, they went home. Okay? Make sure that you're not leaving early while you're still capable. If you're throwing up a few times, you're probably not capable of finishing your day. If you have a fever of 102, you're not capable of finishing your day. So that is a solution to leave early. If things are hard in a class and you don't want to do them and you want to leave, that's an excuse, okay? If you say, I just want to go home, I don't want to be here today, you know, that's life. A lot of people don't want to be at their job every day. A lot of people don't want to have to go do things that they're required to do every day. I have meetings downtown with other principals that I'd really rather be at my school than in those meetings. But I don't make an excuse not to go. I don't leave early. I just go and do what I need to do to make my school better for my kids here, okay? Excuses let you fall off the hook, giving you a feeling of failure, maybe a feeling of relief. And when you get used to that feeling of relief, that really takes away your capability. That takes away the possibility of your success. Okay? Have your parents ever bought a car? I've bought some cars. My favorite cars I've bought were when I paid cash for them, though, because I didn't have to get a loan. Okay. I have a house I had to get a loan on. I had to put money down on my loan in order to get a better loan. And hopefully Mrs. Rude taught some of you this in money management with loans. Okay. Well, when you get a loan, you put down a down payment, and how much money you put down on that loan changes your loan for the better. Okay. Excuses are a down payment on staying stuck exactly where you are. Okay. If you want to stay stuck in your credits at high school, make an excuse. Okay. If you want to stay stuck as a middle schooler and not get past the math class you're in so you can be ready as a freshman to earn credits and graduate early, you're making a down payment with an excuse to stay stuck exactly where you are. All right? Excuses are cheap, but they lead to high costs. All right? I've had a great week this week. I've earned a bunch of 4s. And on Friday, I get a 2 in a class, and rather than wait and talk to that teacher later about that, I throw a fit, I get angry, I start swearing, whatever. And right now, that cheap excuse just led me to bronze next week because that excuse had a big cost to me, okay? There are so many ways to handle things, so many solutions that we're not using enough because we're using the excuse, okay? Excuses separate you from finding a solution. So like I said, you don't like the points you were given in a class. What do? You got 2 choices. You're in control of either one of them, okay? You walk out of that class. You don't carry the frustration to the next class. You start all over new at the next class. Later on, maybe you go back and talk to that teacher and say, you gave me a 2. I'd like to hear why. I respect what you say, but I'd like to tell you where I'm coming from on that. You know, that's a solution. An excuse is Mrs. So-and-so just hates me. She targeted me all class and gave me 2s when I should have got 4s. Okay, it's easy to make that excuse. Find a solution to that, and you'll have better points, you'll have better levels, you'll be a lot happier. Excuses allow us to choose to sit on the sidelines of our own life, all right? Everybody here is in the game of life, and you can choose to participate in your life or sit in the sidelines and watch everybody else around you. Sitting on the sidelines is easy, okay? If you watch any game, if you watch any sport, if you watch any competition, sitting on the sidelines is easy because you can sit on the sidelines and you can criticize the people that are in the game because you're not in the game. You can complain about that person who's the starting point guard and you're not the starting point guard. You can criticize the way they play. You can cut them down. You can do things like that because all you're doing is making excuses for why you're not there, why you're not out on that court, okay? Same happens in our lives. I can get bad grades and not put in the effort and make an excuse that the teacher doesn't like me, they don't teach me. I didn't ask that teacher to teach me, so I don't know why she's doing this to me. She's doing it to you because she cares. She's trying to get you off the sidelines into life and being successful. Those are solutions, not excuses, okay? Where you do things doesn't matter. It's how you do them. Okay, read a great story this week about a team in Chicago, soccer team at a high school, one of the high schools that didn't have a lot of money, and their practice field got damaged, and they had to fix the practice field right before the season started, so they had no place to practice. And so the coach was like, I don't know what I'm going to do. We're going to have to figure out something, a solution. Otherwise, we're not going to be very good, or we're not going to be able to practice. She looked around at some areas and she was like, well, I'll call over here and see if we can rent this place or if we can use that place. And they couldn't afford any of that. And as she was sitting there looking out her window of her classroom, she saw this big parking lot. And she was like, after school, there's nobody in that parking lot. Everybody left. We're going to use the parking lot. And you know what happened? Skin knees, gravel all over the place. It's just like you guys when you play hoops at lunch and you're sliding all over the place because of our asphalted parking lot back there that's not great. but you still get to play. And you know what she found? They won some games that she thought they weren't going to win because, and Mrs. Sorensen, you might be able to help me on this. The ball moving on concrete or asphalt moves a lot faster than it does on grass. And they found that they played faster and had more control because they practiced on that parking lot. So rather than using the excuse of we're not going to be very good because we don't have a place to practice, that coach decided we're going to find a solution and make the best out of our situation that we can. Okay? It's no different than when we've had issues here with the internet or with the power and we haven't been able to do something. And what do your teachers do? Do they make the excuse, we're not doing anything today because there's no internet? No, they find a solution and make sure you guys keep moving forward so you stay in the game and off the sidelines. This is one I really like. People with problem-solving ability view a problem as a puzzle to be solved, not a roadblock, okay? I see this a lot out of you guys and you don't even realize it. I see you guys that make excuses in the morning, all of a sudden at lunch, have problem-solving ability. You know how? I watch you play chess. Chess is a big puzzle. You're solving it. I watch you play cards. Cards is another puzzle. You're solving it. I watch you play hoops outside. That is a challenge. And for you to make a basket, it takes a certain form. It takes a certain effort. You guys are being problem solvers out there. You're not making excuses. You're solving the problem. You're solving the puzzle. Okay? You're not allowing things to roadblock you and stop you from success. I'm almost done. Limits. Everybody has limits. You ever heard someone, has your mom ever said to you, my mom used to say this, Jason, darn it, I'm about at my limit with you. That meant she was getting fed up with me, okay? Some use limits as an excuse, okay? My mom may have felt like she's at her limit with me, but she found a solution rather than using, I'm tired of Jason being a knucklehead. I'm going to use it as an excuse just to send him into his room and not deal with him the rest of the day. Instead, she found a solution so I'd stop being a knucklehead and she wasn't at her limit anymore, okay? Some use limits as excuses. Others push on and use those limits as motivation, okay? Have you guys ever heard of Bethany Hamilton? I bet some of you may have, some of you haven't. Some of you might hear the story and like, yeah, I know who that is. Bethany Hamilton was like 14 years old, and she was a world-class surfer. You know, she at 14 was competing in these competitions against these people who were 3 times her age, stronger, and she was competing with them. Well, Bethany hit her limit one day when, sorry, Miss Boroff, she got her arm eaten by a shark. And so she was rushed to the hospital. They did surgery. She lost her arm. And within a month, she was back practicing surfing and doing it one-armed. She had a limit. She lost one of her arms. And within a couple of years, she was a world champion surfer again, okay? She had a solution mindset. She wasn't gonna let her limit keep her from competing, okay? A lot of times people that don't have the solution mindset will say, it's too late, it won't work. I don't care. I hear this one all the time out of some of you. I don't care. Do whatever you want. I don't care. Well, actually, the people that say I don't care actually really do care. They just don't want you to let you know it. And they're using the I don't care excuse to not let them have success. Bethany Hamilton could have said, it's too late for me. I don't have an arm. It won't work because I can't balance myself because I don't have an arm. Or I really don't care anymore. Life sucks. The shark got me. No. She rose above her limits, she found a solution, she trained, and she became a world championship surfer. When we have limits, we need to look at these things. What's still possible? What haven't I tried? Who could help me think differently about this? And what have I failed to consider? When you're making an excuse, think about these 4 things. Okay? I'm failing my quiz. What's still possible? okay? What haven't I tried on my notes to make sure I get the information better? Who could help me think differently on this math problem I'm struggling with? Is there anything I failed to consider on this that could help me be more successful? All right. I got a 2 in social skills today, and it's a bunch of crap. Oh, wait a minute. What did I fail to consider? Oh, yeah. When Miss Berger asked me to stop talking, I kept talking. And then I threw an eraser across the room and hit my buddy. I didn't consider those things when she gave me points. I need to think about that rather than getting upset and going to Miss Rude's class next and being a total jerk because I'm ticked off about social skills. Use these skills to get over your limits, okay? If you do this, if you find yourself in a solution mindset rather than an excuse trap, you'll stop circling around that problem. You'll start solving it, and you'll be way more successful.